to my podcast, you all. Today we have a very, very special guest. This is my newly found friend, Paul Gunn, who is a two-time back-to-back 21 and 22 Inc. 5000 winner. He is an amazing person, and I am so glad to have him on my podcast today. Paul, why don't you tell the audience who you are, what you do, and tell us what you're passionate about?
Well, thanks, Gina, for having me. My name is Paul Gunn, and we're founder of KUOG Corporation, and we essentially help our warfighters in getting home safely by providing them to materials they need. And I'm basically passionate about being in a vessel to overflow into others, kind of like how we met.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And we're talking about warfighters. Before we got on, I was showing Paul this image. I couldn't even believe it, Paul. I actually double checked to make sure that it wasn't AI because on 9/11, which I'm sure is really dear to a lot of people, it's emotional to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But look at this. There was a rainbow on 9/11 across New York City. Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Talk about being the vessel of positivity right there.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a two-prong. My pops is from Harlem, raised in
Oh,
Brooklyn, and that kind of that was the genesis of my brother going in to serve as a Marine, and then once he went in, I also wanted to go in as an officer, but I didn't even know you could be denied for plantar fasciitis, so that's kind of what held me
oh,
back. So
got
I
it.
I didn't see my brother for 4 years when he was
Mm-hmm.
over there. So that's kind of the genesis of how we started. Once he came back, my dad was like, "Hey, had you and your brother figured out if y'all want to go into a business together?" And the previous company we had, that's what started it. I hadn't seen him for 4 years, so as soon as he touched down, I said, "Hey, look, why don't we try and go in business together? We hadn't seen each other. I missed you and missed him, and him and I are real close." So we
Wow.
started that last company, and that company made it on the ink. And then from there, we went our separate ways. Interesting enough, he's in your industry now, so that's kind of what sparked the
That is
interest.
interesting. What
What
does
was
he
going.
do, Paul? What does your
So
brother do? Is
he
he a
was
truck
long,
driver?
yeah, he was long haul all of it, and he
Got it.
he was getting all top. He went through all the train. So I hear some of the pain points that actually go into what you do. So that's just I find it fascinating what you're doing to impact, because that's dear to me is knowing my
Mhm.
brothers on the road, and what you're doing to help.
Oh, well, thank you, Paul. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So tell me about that in terms of helping individuals at war. I'm sure this really gets to your heart about what inspires them and what inspires you to learn and to help them.
That's a great question. So I'll take it as a personal. When my brother was over there, right when the towers went down, I missed him. Yeah, my brother, he's my
Oh,
younger brother, and
mhm.
I know they signed up for war. That's what warriors do. They go over there, they sign up for it. But still, as his brother and how close we were, I was like, I hope he has what he needs, and I want to see him get home safely. So
Right. Oh.
when when we had the opportunity to do this, to me, I took it on as, hey, if someone else has a family member over there serving, and I could be in a position, or we could be in a position to at least give them what they need to get home, I took it on. And it wasn't until we set up Comcast in the apartment that we had at one time. The
Mhm.
person on the other phone was a Marine, and
Oh,
he was talking about kind of how he was when he was over there. When he found out we supported one of the programs that he was in, he went on for 5 minutes about, "Man, I'm home because you didn't directly put it, but y'all supported the item and the unit that I was
mhm,
in that saved my
mhm.
life." And he just went on for
Oh,
5 minutes. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And from that point on, it touched me already, but that has left a mark on me to this day. I still get chills when I talk about it, because
mhm.
it's more than just ordering parts. Somebody's on the other end of it, and I'll never forget how that Marine just touched me when he said, he thanked me for what we were doing, because he said, "I'm home because of it."
Gosh, yes. That's I think why, Paul, we do what we do because we're really
Yeah,
passionate about saving lives, right?
yeah.
I have you on the week of 9/11. I mean, it just works out. You're such an inspiration, Paul. I mean, you're doing things that are unbelievable. Talk about helping people, veterans, and people actually at war. It's pretty unbelievable. So I could think there's a lot to learn, like in that industry. There's a lot of different learning experiences actually in terms of life or death. And so what do you think really engages somebody in a learning experience or when they have to learn something, especially going to war? What do you think engages them?
So I'm not a veteran. I
Mhm.
don't know. I take into a lot of accounts those who have served and listen to them. And I'll speak frankly, anyone who's ever really made an impact on me has been a veteran.
Mhm.
So one of the learning things I, I would take from them is their ability to listen and even hear from me. My brother jokes and tells me I'm a civilian, so they get it.
Got
But
it. Got
yeah,
it.
so in them quiet moments, he's always saying you're civilian. You just don't get it. But the learning for what they have to do, even in combat and what they're doing, going to serve, is meaningful. And I'll give you, for instance, there's a book by Stephen Drum, Life on the X, that
Oh,
came out. Yeah, he's a
yeah.
Master Chief
Mhm.
Navy SEAL. So I kind of got an inside look on how they think or what matters to them.
Mhm.
He's talking about life on the X. Either you're getting on it or you're moving off it. So whatever they
Gosh.
have to learn to move and be quick and execute, and then take those learning abilities out once they leave,
Gosh,
have
yeah.
meaning.
That's amazing, Paul. Like what you're really talking about is life or death. It's like driving a truck. That's why we train truck drivers. We want them to come home alive to their families. You want your brother to come alive off the war field, right? I mean, we want to save lives and make a difference. And so it's really important that they get what they need.
Well, that's interesting. You're talking about between correlation from that and then him driving. One of the things he talked about when he left and went on to driving, he was saying there's a lot of training that goes into it. They don't just give you the truck to go. He was doing the driving where it was two at a time till he learned. Then he got in a position. There was an experience where he told me they let someone drive the truck. They shouldn't have been driving the truck.
Oh
And so
no.
he was in the role to tell him. He said, "Whatever you're doing, trucking's not it. Find something
Yeah.
else. We're pulling over because it's too important, and they want to make sure the training's there." So they do take a vested interest in training, and I feel he talks a lot about what he learned in the military actually helped
Mhm.
him do
Wow.
well with training. So
That's
on the truck.
excellent.
Yeah.
Got it. So, Paul, what does authentic learning look like to you? So, a lot of times in learning science, so I studied the brain and how people learn, right? And so
Yeah.
there's all this talk about authentic learning. If you were to tell someone what authentic learning means to you, how would you define that?
Uh, so I'm not gonna say I'm not an advocate for school. I'm an advocate for learning and being
Uh-huh.
educated. So I would feel saying to me is more on those that are divergent. What are you doing that's going to educate you? I mean, anybody can learn repetition. So what are you going to get at for the people who don't fit the mold? You have auditory, tactile, you have those who are visual. Are you encapsulating everything that's in there to learn? Not everybody can sit down at a desk. I watched my own brother when you come in, how he was before he went to war, how he was when he came back. So
Mhm.
you can't get everybody to just sit still in the
Mhm.
room and do it. How are you going to touch on the different ways people learn in their authentic way? You're still educating, but you're considering all the different inroads to how they retain and gain information.
Yeah, I love that. So, was there a time in your life, can you think back personally to you because you're such an inspiration in social media, you're a thought leader. Is there anything that's really made you be who you are that's left an impact on your thinking? So, think back to maybe when you learned something that really changed the way you think.
So part of me has always felt that I saw things different, and that school in itself was not set up in the way that I learned. I always felt I was a divergent learner, but it
Mhm.
wasn't until my sophomore year in college when I was taking a biochemistry class,
Oh,
and the teacher, yeah,
biochemistry, huh?
yeah, And the teacher went in and he basically said, look, it was almost a higher learning experience to say, look, let me come in and show you how to do it. Throw everything out of the book on theory. This is how you do it. And he sat and he wanted to learn how I learned, how he took that approach. So yes, he collectively taught everybody, but he was a researcher. He studied the mind, like says, what is it that you see? And when he put it in the context for me to be able to learn, I left that saying, see, you don't have to always teach people in a traditional way. When you can gas that idea or put it in front of them in a way that they learn, it made an impact on me. And that's how I was able to finish college. He basically told me to take that brainstorm approach, right down in the center, and then kind of put everything out on the end that makes an inroad into that brainstorm model.
That's amazing. So that professor had a profound impact, it sounds like, on you. That's amazing. We should have had him on the show too, Paul. That would have been awesome. Well, that's great. So it sounds like, tell me, this is a twofold. This is a choice. So like either a time where you've overcome a learning hurdle yourself, maybe you struggled with something yourself and you came out on the other side, like having a mind of a champion, or maybe there's somebody that you helped overcome the impossible. So maybe something yourself, or can you talk about that? Maybe there was a time you helped someone overcome the impossible, or you did yourself.
Yeah, well, I remember in school when the teacher told me basically, you're not learning math. I don't like the way you're not showing your work. And kind of right before getting out of high school, she's like, "You're never going to amount to nothing. You need math for everything." And well, I said, "Fine, I'm going to do something that has nothing to do with math. We'll see how that goes." But that kind of left a mark. And the reason I bring up that teacher in the biochemistry class was because of what that one said in high school. It kind of sat for a while. I didn't let it bug me, but it did bug me. And it wasn't until that biochemistry teacher had said what he said that I said, what was said to me in my junior year in high school was just simply incorrect. Here's someone who goes on to let you know you can go and handle those things. Don't let what was said kind of wait.
So, Paul, do you think, so I wrote an article about the mind of a champion. And what you're talking about is similar things that have happened to me where people say, you can't do this. You can't go and be successful, and you overcome that and you become something much, much more. I mean, Paul's won back-to-back Inc. 5000. He's helping war fighters come home and get the supplies they need. Do you think, Paul, that comes from, it sounds like you had support of teachers and outside, which is awesome. That's partly, that's important. Do you think it's a combination of getting a support of a mentor or teacher to come out of that? Or do you think it's a combination of pulling that out from deep inside? Or how did you overcome that thinking that was placed on you to become so much more today?
Well, I always say that I have intangible wealth, and I'll say this: my parents and our home life, even if nothing material was the premise, the intangible wealth that our parents instilled with us was always telling us, "Hey, look, despite what the outside world does, keep doing it." And I will say, my dad by nature, he's a teacher. That's his gift. So what he does in his line of work, how he does it, he was often instilling into us, hey, look, people are going to say things, you got to look within. It's not going to be the first time. It's going to happen more often than you think. So be prepared. The stuff hurts, but you can't let it sit down and do it. So we were blessed, eternally blessed, to have parents, and I was blessed for a male role model with my dad to just be in there reinstilling those things at a young age, to say you're going to have to go through it and learn it. So take from it and learn and keep your faith rooted.
Got it. Awesome. That is amazing, Paul. And so you talk about a male role model. Let's say right now there's somebody listening out there that has lost hope. They're feeling disparate, they're feeling down, and they've really lost their passion to learn. If you could say one thing to them who is listening, what would you say to inspire them to keep going?
That's a web question, because I've been there even with a parent to say, hey, it's gone. So that's difficult. I let them know, look, you're more than what people say that you are because you've been etched with an eternal marks. You're breathing air, and because of that, you've got enough to go. I can't say don't listen to it because you hear it, but understand what's inside you is greater than people's opinions. That's an opinion. It's different if someone's giving you feedback to help elevate you. Is that person coming from a place of care? Yes, but I found most people are critiquing things they have no business in or not in an arena to do it. So I would say, look, I've been there before. I know what's inside you is greater.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, if you all have not connected with Paul Gunn yet, this is your opportunity. If you have a question, if you need something, Paul's heart is bigger than gold. We've met a few months ago and he's helping you. He has a passion. Paul, is there anything else you want to tell this community today and leave them with a final thought?
Thanks for tuning in, and that everyone's a vessel for overflow, and whatever you're doing, pay it forward to somebody else. Be that light or spark if you can to help somebody elevate and move whatever they're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for being on our show today.
Yeah.